about a half hour late. When I walked in, my cousin was about to light the Hanukkah, and there were about 35 people around her watching. Since I was in rabbinical school then, my cousin asked me as soon as I walked in through the door, "George, why don't you explain for everyone, what is Hanukkah all about?" I felt overwhelmed, like a 5-year-old on the first day of kindergarten. The Hanukkah story, it's complicated, and there are so many people staring at me right now. Okay, Hanukkah, I thought. You mean the holiday that's described in the first book of Maccabees that tells the story of an uprising against an oppressive king? Or do you mean the holiday in 2nd Maccabees that tells the story of a Jewish civil war? Or maybe you mean the kid-friendly holiday-based myth on the Talmud or of the miracle of the oil lasting 8 nights. Perhaps you're referring to the holiday that brings up difficult questions of assimilation and what we should fight for as Jews. Or maybe you mean the holiday that has taken on new meaning in the United States because of Christmas. In that moment at the Hanukkah party, I said something about Hanukkah having many meanings, the miracle of oil lasting 8 nights, and the complexity of the holiday. And so I went on into the party. Although it was particularly difficult for me to summarize Hanukkah then and there, I think this actually speaks to a deeper truth. All of the Jewish holidays, and Hanukkah in particular, are layered, rich, and complicated. This is at once one of the most challenging aspects of Judaism and also one of its most rewarding characteristics. When we decide to observe each holiday, we turn to our collective Jewish memory. For many of us, that means considering how our families observe the holidays and learning from our communities like our synagogue about the holiday today. We are also part of a broader Jewish community that observes Jewish holidays, and we are, of course, part of a long chain of Jewish history. One of my favorite ideas about Jewish history comes from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Heschel argues that Jewish history isn't just a straight line moving forward, the way we normally think about history on a timeline. Instead, Heschel writes that Jewish history also moves in spirals. In the case of the revelation at Mount Sinai, Heschel describes how all subsequent history circles back to that moment. When we, as modern Jews, experience Jewish revelation in a new way, our experience gives new meaning to that original moment at Sinai. So let's apply Heschel's idea of Jewish history to Hanukkah in 2024. How is celebrating Hanukkah in 2024 different? How does this year's Hanukkah help give new meaning to Hanukkah in general? This year, it seems as though Hanukkah has brought more meaning about the darkness that surrounds the miracle of light. In the last days of 2024, the outlook for our country can feel to many of us to be especially bleak. There's so much to worry about, including the fate of vulnerable people in the United States for years to come. Of course, many of us also have the war in Israel and Gaza on our minds. Nearly 14 months into this war, hostages are still held in Gaza, and our hearts break for the innocent civilians in Gaza. A rabbi I admire, Rabbi Shira Stutman, wrote in the Washington Post about how 1st Maccabees tells the story of what happened immediately after the Jews won the war against King Antiochus and his army. The victorious Jews walk into the temple in Jerusalem, and the first thing they do is take stock of all that has been destroyed. They observe their desolate sanctuary, their profaned altar, and the priest's chambers in ruins. Then they mourn. 1st Maccabees describes how they rent their clothes, made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads. They fell down flat to the ground upon their faces and blew an alarm of trumpets and cried toward heaven. This Hanukkah, we acknowledge how much is broken in the world. This Hanukkah, we have mourning to do too. This Hanukkah, we lament how much darkness surrounds us. As we do this work of lamentation, this work of looking at the brokenness of the world, It is upon us also to do what we can do to change the world. I want to offer you some words from Rabbi Oded Mazor, the rabbi of Kol HaNeshama Synagogue in Jerusalem, a rare but mighty Reformed congregation in Israel. He gave a moving speech at a rally for the release of hostages and for peace last Saturday, and he concluded his speech by talking about the Hanukkah candles in a way I hadn't heard before. These candles we will light on Hanukkah are for true brotherhood and sisterhood, for responsibility, for perseverance, and for insisting on the value of the life of every human being. If we do not do this ourselves in these days and in this time, we will have no right to be ourselves anymore. There will be no point to any of the miracles and wonders that our fathers, mothers, sisters, and brothers, and we ourselves fulfilled. We have come to expel darkness. We have in our hands the light of love, of peace. Each of us is a small light, and together we make a powerful light. Together we will increase the light in the world and bring everyone home. In Mazor's interpretation of Hanukkah, it is upon us to create the light. It is upon us to together make new miracles. Hanukkah takes on new meanings in 2024, or to return to Heschel's image of Jewish history as a spiral, it gives new meaning to the symbols that we already had there. This year, during Hanukkah, we lament the darkness in the world around us, and we work for and pray for a world in which together we can create more light. Ultimately, the military victory of the Hanukkah story was short-lived. Just a couple hundred years later, no time at all in Jewish history, the temple would be destroyed again by the Romans. But if we consider that Jewish history is comprised of spirals, we as Jews today can carry the brief victory of the Hanukkah story forward, and we can give it new meaning. In the Jewish year of 5785, we add to the meaning of Hanukkah the lamentation of darkness and our obligation to create more light. Chag Urim Sameach, happy holiday of lights. May this Hanukkah bring more light into the world. And we say together, Amen. We begin to conclude our service with Aleinu,